Hey there, fellow Reddit enthusiasts. If you love diving into intriguing Reddit stories, you'll want to stick around till the end. We've got a captivating one lined up for you today. For this video, we're delving into the fascinating world of relationships, so buckle up for a deep dive into some compelling stories. My 29F husband, 31M, got a paternity test on our daughter, 5F, and it came back negative, but I never cheated. Now he thinks our relationship is a lie and wants to divorce. What do? I don't know how it happened, and I haven't been able to stop crying all day. I never cheated. I love my husband. We've been together since college, and he's the love of my life. He's handsome and kind. And while I've slept with 2 other people, both were before we got together. There is no other potential father for our daughter. We were married already and actively trying for a baby. I never cheated. I never would cheat, and I don't know why he took that stupid test because I would never, ever cheat. But it came back negative, and now he thinks he's not her dad. I don't know how to convince him it was a faulty test, and I'm so scared. These past few months, it's like he's become someone completely different from the man I married. He's cold and suspicious. He kept demanding to see my phone and wouldn't tell me why. And I showed him at first, but eventually told him I wouldn't anymore unless he explained why. He's been distant with our daughter too. He stays in his office for hours on end, and I don't know what he's doing. I did not cheat. He accused me this morning, saying he'd done the test after realizing that our daughter's eyes, brown, wouldn't naturally come from ours, both blue, and that he wanted me to get out of the house. I didn't leave, and he locked me out of our bedroom, and now I'm in my daughter's room. This is terrifying. What should I do? Also, I just had a conversation with my husband. He's out of his room now, and we discussed some things. I told him again that I would never cheat and started talking about a list I made of tests I want done, but he told me that he didn't want to hear it right now. We're going to have a longer conversation tomorrow, and he said that he still loves our daughter, and he won't try to keep me out of the house or our room for now. I asked him to hug me, and he did. I'm scared that I won't be able to convince him. I just want our family to go back to normal. How can I be a good wife and support his needs while proving my innocence? Hold on to your seats. In the upcoming story update, we're weaving in more of your opinions. It's your chance to shape the narrative, so keep those insights flowing. Update. My 29F husband, 31M, got a paternity test on our daughter, 5F, and it came back negative, but I never cheated. Now he thinks our relationship is a lie and wants to divorce. What do? We did a few tests, blood paternity tests for him and me, and our daughter, and we had an appointment with a chimerism specialist coming up. But that got canceled because, well, some of you guessed it, but my daughter is not biologically mine either. I don't know how this happened, but a police officer came to our house and took our statements, and we're suing the hospital where I gave birth. I don't know what happened to my baby, and that is terrifying. I have my husband back, but my whole world was still up and dead, and I just wish he'd never taken that stupid test. I've been sleeping in my daughter's room, and I'm so afraid that she's going to be taken away from me. But at the same time, I want to know where my biological daughter is, and if she's okay. I pray to God she's okay. My daughter still doesn't know the details, and we've been trying to keep this quiet. The last thing we need is a big scandal. I don't want people who know us to look at her differently. She deserves better than that. She's such a good kid, and she's not some spectacular to be gawked at. If we can find her birth family, I have no idea what we'll do. I guess the best case scenario would be to get a bigger house and all live together, but I don't know if we can afford that, or if they'd go for that, or even if we'll be able to locate them, or if I'm just crazy. This whole situation is crazy. I don't know anyone else who's been in a situation like this. I mean, are there support groups for parents of kids who got mixed up? I Googled and nothing came up. Literally, all I'm getting are tabloid articles from trashy magazines that slap the faces of innocent kids on the same pages as celebrity sex scandals and fiction. How do we tell our daughter? I mean, we can't tell her now. She'll tell the kids at school and then it'll be everywhere. But we have to say something. I don't know what I ever did to deserve this. The story isn't over yet. In our next update, Husband's Perspective, we're weaving in more of your opinions and reactions. Your voices are an integral part of the storytelling process. My husband saw my post. Hello, everyone. So, apparently a YouTuber my husband watches decided that it would be a fun idea to read my post on his channel. My husband recognized the story because, well, of course he recognized the story. How could he not? This doesn't happen every day. Then he went on my account page. Then he found quite a few comments about him that were not exactly nice. And now he has asked me for a chance to post his side of the story on this account so that people stop trashing him. Please be nice. So, I don't know how many of you have been down a self-doubt rabbit hole before, but it's not the most logical place to be. It's even less logical when you have the whole damn internet telling you that your wife is cheating, and that she's planning to take the house and take you for all you're worth, and never really loved you. And you always sort of thought she was too good for you anyway. So you end up seeing everything as a sign of infidelity. And then you get not 1, but 2 failed paternity tests on your daughter. When COVID happened, I got fat. I got depressed. I stopped feeling like a person. My wife stayed beautiful. She stayed herself. I was sure that she'd made a mistake, that she'd regret being with me. I started getting into some online groups, especially on Reddit, that were full of guys who'd been cheated on, lost custody, lost everything. And when someone said that his tip-off was that he and his wife both had blue eyes and their son had brown, I felt fucking stupid. I did not want to jump to conclusions, but when I made a post about my fears, everyone said that she was cheating. People said not to say anything because she'd use it to hide her cheating and get ahead of me on the divorce. I got the test and I didn't really think it'd come back negative. Then it did. I didn't want to believe it. But yeah, I pulled back. I felt betrayed. I wanted to be a good husband, but I couldn't shake this. I tried to find evidence of an affair and failed. I got another test. When that one was also negative, I snapped. If you've ever been cheated on, you know what it feels like. When my wife denied it, I got angrier. I just wanted her to leave. I didn't want to go through what everyone seemed to think was going to happen. I didn't want to lose custody of my kid. I didn't want to lose my house. I was scared and angry, and I wanted the truth. I felt like if she couldn't even be honest, there was no getting past this. I took a few hours to calm down. When she came back with a list of tests to take, I tried to keep my cool. I tried to keep my cool for so long. I know I was wrong about the affair, but so was everyone else in my ear. My kid is genuinely not biologically mine. I didn't immediately consider that switched at birth was an option. I've been through a messed up time, and I don't think getting angry one time because I thought my wife cheated and was lying about it makes me a monster. Ah, the wonders of the internet, a place where self-doubt and relationship drama get broadcasted to millions. In the saga of mistaken paternity, we've witnessed a roller coaster of emotions, from the shock of a negative paternity test to the revelation that the daughter isn't biologically related to either parent. Now, before we dive into the husband's perspective, let's appreciate the tension here. It's like a Netflix series where you're on the edge of your seat, waiting for the next plot twist. Will they find the biological parents? Can they avoid the stereotypes of tabloid sensationalism? Will they discover the truth without going full daytime talk show drama? The suspense is killing us. It's refreshing to see a story that doesn't fit the usual cheating spouse narrative. Our leading lady swears she's faithful, and we're inclined to believe her. But the husband's journey into the depths of online forums and paranoia? Classic case of overthinking. The lesson? Never trust everything you read on the internet, especially when it comes to paternity tests and relationship advice. And then enter the husband's perspective. He got fat, he got depressed, and he got into online forums. It's a relatable descent into self-doubt, complete with a getting fat during COVID subplot that most of us can nod along to. But let's face it, we've all been down the internet rabbit hole once or twice, and it's rarely the most logical place to be. Well, the YouTuber reading this story on his channel is like the icing on the drama cake. The internet's finest armchair detectives unleash their inner Sherlock Holmes. Now, let's shift our focus to the comments section and see what our fantastic community has to say about this. Your insights always add an extra layer to the conversation. User almost to freedom. Very interesting. Read my post history and you can probably guess why I immediately thought you were lying. Goes to show you that you never really know what the situation is. Goes to show me, I should say. I hope that you're able to track down your actual child. I hope that the parents who are taking care of them are good people. And I hope that one day, this is a Lifetime movie. Plot is switched at birth. Neither set of parents are awful, and both kids grow up with two moms and dads who love the shit out of them. It's a tearjerker. GLOP, user Hot Philosopher 1435. Did OP ever explain what happened when her daughter was born? C-section or vaginal? Didn't they witness the hospital putting a bracelet on their daughter after she came out of mom? Wasn't the mom and or dad with the baby after she was born and had her bracelet on? This was a hospital. What state? Were there family members there, or were OP and her husband at the hospital alone? I just think it's crazy to have a child in this day and age at a hospital, and the baby gets lost or mixed up. As a mother, after having a baby, that is all you think about. Your child. Was anyone paying attention when she was born and can comment on what they saw in the delivery room? They always put the bracelet on the baby after it comes out before the baby leaves the delivery room. Always. They never take the baby away from the mom or to the nursery before it has been given a bracelet linking it to its mother. Never. User Dragon Rain. Sadly, this happens way more often than it should. Understaffed and overworked leads to mentally fatigued nurses and accidents happen. After the birth, the mother needs some time to recover, and more often than not, the baby will be taken to a room full of cribs with other babies. As we all know, babies don't have very developed facial features. Aside from name tags and room numbers, it would be very difficult to tell which baby came from which mother. If an overworked, mentally drained, sleep-deprived nurse running on 2 hours of sleep and a Red Bull, who is 10 hours into a 14-hour shift, happens to accidentally put your baby in the wrong spot, well, that's basically all she wrote. That's how switches at birth happen. Ready for the next adventure? Let's jump into our next story, and don't forget to hit that like button if you're as excited as I am to explore what comes next. My wife and her best friend accused me of having an affair, then got angry when I didn't have one. I, 31M, and my wife, 29F, had a baby last December. It was a traumatic birth, and my wife developed postpartum depression. While she was originally going to go back to work after the birth, she's been struggling enough that we decided to wait until our daughter was a year old and reassess. She has been going to therapy weekly. With my wife home full-time, I've had to work increased hours. This is something we discussed prior to making this decision, and she knew this from the start. A few weeks ago, my boss approached me about a project that would require a lot of overtime in a short amount of time. It would both be great financially and for my career. I talked to my wife about it, and she agreed that I should say yes to my boss. For the 4 weeks I'd be working on this, my male and her best friend Jessie, 29F, name changed, would come help out with some of the duties that I typically do. Jessie is a SHM with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She began coming over during the day and would watch the kids with my wife. 3 weeks into the project, it became clear that we'd need a few more weeks to get it together. I went home that night and talked to my wife about it. She said she was okay with it, but got very cold in the days after. It wasn't unusual behavior over the past few months, so I didn't think much about it and tried not to take it personally. During the last week of the project, I got home one night and saw that Jessie was still at the house. I didn't think much about it, said hi to her and my wife, and then went to go check on our daughter. Before I could get to her room, I heard Jessie say something along the lines of, "He doesn't even stop to greet you. Definitely a sign." I turned around and asked what it was a sign of. Immediately, my wife started crying, and Jessie started accusing me of having an affair. She told me that I must hate my wife because she has PPD and am not attracted to her because she gained weight from the pregnancy. Neither of these things are true. I'm trying my best to help my wife through her PPD while supporting our family. And I think she looks great how she is right now. She just hasn't wanted to have sex and I haven't pushed. Jessie then demanded to see my phone. I told her no. She told me that's a sign that I'm guilty. I told my wife that I would let her see my phone if she wanted to. She nodded and something inside me broke. I guess it was the thought that she actually believed I was having an affair really got to me, and that she didn't trust me after everything we've been through. Well, she looked through the phone and there was no evidence. Jessie started saying that I deleted the evidence. She started screaming and woke up our daughter, so I told her to get out of the house. Eventually, she left and I went to calm our daughter since my wife was still on the couch crying. When my daughter was asleep again, I sat down by my wife and tried to talk to her about what's been happening. She told me that she's been worried ever since I started working all the overtime. I told her that we'd talked about how good of an opportunity it was, and she agreed to letting me take on this project. She said it was very suspicious to increase the length of the project. I told her that sometimes that happens. She wanted more evidence, so I showed her messages and emails with timestamps from work and pay stubs showing the OT. She said she believed me and was sorry for doubting me. It was just that Jessie had been telling her that these were all signs that I was cheating. I asked her why she believed Jessie more than me, and why she didn't come to me with her concerns. She didn't have a real answer. It's been a couple weeks and the project is over. I actually scaled back and am trying to work a little less than I was before the project so I can spend more time with my wife and daughter. But I feel so burnt out trying to do everything and becoming resentful because in the back of my mind, I know that my wife doesn't trust me. I ask myself what happens the next time I have a project, or I have to run errands one day, or if I have a business trip. Am I going to come back every time to accusations that I'm cheating? I've tried bringing it up a couple times, but my wife tells me it's not the time and that she's tired or sad. I try to be mindful of her feelings, but I wonder if that means that I can never have any of my own. I'm not sure what to do here. Any advice for how I can move forward? The classic tale of a man working overtime, only to come home to accusations of infidelity and a best friend turned detective. It's like Shakespeare, but with more pay stubs and fewer soliloquies. Firstly, you've got a new dad, exhausted from work, accused of having a secret affair while battling PPD-induced cold shoulders. It's the kind of tension you'd expect in a telenovela, with dramatic accusations and a side character screaming, "Definitely a sign." Who knew overtime could be so scandalous? Those pesky things we try to avoid but somehow always find their way into a domestic drama. Here we have the classic working late equals cheating assumption, because it's inconceivable that a guy might want to secure the bag for his family. And then there's the best friend turned relationship detective, Jessie, who probably moonlights as a conspiracy theorist on weekends, stereotypes at their finest. Now picture this, a tired dad walking in, ready to collapse on the couch, only to be greeted by accusations and a demand for a phone inspection. It's almost like a sitcom, but with more emotional distress. "Honey, I'm home, and apparently I'm also having an affair." Fun times. But let's not forget the positive message in this chaos. Despite the misunderstandings and accusations, there's an underlying commitment to family and a genuine effort to understand each other. It's a reminder that even in the most absurd situations, love and communication can prevail. Keep those keyboards active. In the story update, we're incorporating more of your opinions. It's like crafting a story together, and your input is invaluable. Update. My wife and her best friend accused me of having an affair, then got angry when I didn't have one. That night, I approached my wife and told her that I was going to find a therapist. I didn't connect it to her accusations or anything, just said that I was having a tough time and needed therapy. She shrugged and told me to do whatever. Next day, I got home from work and our room and my home office were ripped apart. Things everywhere. Important papers scattered. I don't see her, but our daughter's in her room crying. My wife left her alone, her cell phone's off. I call my in-laws and a few friends, but no one's seen her. I'm starting to get worried and I call my mom to see if she can babysit while I go out and look for her. Before my mom can get home, my wife gets back. Jesse's driving. Jessie doesn't come in. She hasn't been back in the house since I kicked her out because she was offended by my behavior. But my wife does. She's clearly upset, been crying. I ask what happened. I thought at first the house might have been robbed. She starts screaming at me that I'm being unfaithful and that the therapy is a front so I can meet my mistress. I try to calm her down and tell her that's not true, but she came at me and she hit me. My nose is broken. She kind of realized what she did and sat down on the couch and went comatose, just stared at the wall. I went into my daughter's room and locked the door, called my mom to tell her what happened, she was already on her way, and my mill to ask her to come over and take care of my wife. I packed a bag for my daughter, and when my mom got there, we left. My wife didn't even look up. We dropped my daughter off with my dad and then went to urgent care for my nose. I got blued all over my mom's new Subaru. My daughter and I are staying with my parents for a while and my wife's staying with hers. I am looking into getting a restraining order against Jessie. My wife and I are separating. I love her, but I won't live with someone who hurts me and who could potentially hurt our daughter. I am not going forward with a divorce yet, with the hopes that my wife will get the treatment she needs and we can work things out. My in-laws told me that they're looking at inpatient treatment at a local hospital, but I also have everything well documented in case of an eventual custody battle. My heart's broken because I know this isn't my wife. This is a sickness in her mind. But I need to keep myself and our daughter safe and give her the space to recover. I'm hoping that this is the right decision. The story evolves with your perspectives. In the final update, we're integrating more of your opinions. Keep those comments coming as we shape the narrative together. Update. Do I let the woman I fault with my wife's death let her speak at her funeral? My wife passed on early Monday morning. Convinced by her friend Jessie that I was having an affair that I did not have, she had a mental break, which resulted in my taking our infant daughter and staying with my parents for a while. She was with her parents, who planned on taking her to the hospital for inpatient treatment on Monday. On Sunday night, she came to my parents' house and demanded I give her our daughter. Because she had left her alone for several hours the last time she was responsible for her and had gotten physical with me, I refused. I offered to let her come in and spend time with her while my parents and I were present, but she didn't want to come in and wanted to take our daughter with her. She was upset, but left eventually. A few hours later, she drove her parents' car into a tree and died. The friend, Jessie, came to see my daughter and me yesterday. After some tears, she told me that she was planning to speak at my wife's funeral. She had already cleared it with my in-laws, but was letting me know as a courtesy. I told her she would not be speaking at the funeral. We fought, and she left after telling me that I was an asshole and not the only person who loved my wife. I talked to my in-laws, who are adamant that Jessie be allowed to speak. She and my wife knew each other since they were kids, and my in-laws are close to her. We're all very fragile right now, and I fear that pushing this further would hurt my relationship with my in-laws, which I don't want. Still, the thought of seeing Jessie up there at my wife's funeral makes me feel sick. I don't think I can stand to listen to her, knowing that she took joy in my wife's deteriorating mental health and picked up my wife, leaving my daughter home alone. That being said, I don't trust myself to make the best decisions right now. My mind's clouded by grief, guilt, and fear. My parents are split on what to do, and I don't have the energy to reach out to my friends, so I'm coming here again to ask for your advice. Well, folks, we've reached the grand finale of this emotional roller coaster. Our protagonist, grieving the tragic loss of his wife, now faces a decision that's as thorny as a cactus in a rose garden. To let or not to let the infamous Jessie speak at the funeral, that is the question. Firstly, the grief is palpable. The emotions are raw, and now we've got Jessie vying for a spot at the podium, even in the throes of mourning. We've got the classic friend-turned-foe scenario, where Jessie's actions are raising eyebrows faster than a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Who knew that friendship could be so complicated? And now, picture this. Jessie, the self-appointed eulogist, strutting up to the podium, ready to spill the emotional beans. It's like a sitcom moment, where you're torn between laughter and tears, unsure if you're watching a funeral or an audition for a tragic stand-up routine. Grieving is messy, decisions are hard, and emotions are like a potluck. You never know what you're going to get. It's a reminder that even in the most tumultuous times, finding a middle ground can be the key to preserving fragile relationships. It's that time again. We're transitioning to the community comments. Keep those thoughts coming, and let's make this discussion even more interesting. User Hullabaloo 2.2. I don't know if that was her intention in the conscious sense. She may have planned to do so, but without realizing she planned to do so. Poor woman was clearly not of sound mind when this all went down. Jessie was probably jealous of her best friend and her seemingly perfect life, caring husband and beautiful daughter. That as soon as she had the chance to, she poisoned the mind and eventually drove someone to their death. What I can't get over is how she took this woman from her child and didn't let anyone know. If Jessie was the best friend she claimed to be, the least she could have done at the time of taking the wife for a drive after the house was wrecked would have been to tell the wife's parents. But instead, she just left a baby, who by my count is only a few months old, all alone. User Alexandria Lighthouse. I can't imagine a friend calling me in complete distress about something I planted in her mind, seeing that she destroyed her living space and being like, yeah, let's leave for hours and just leave your helpless infant alone in a crib. What a great idea. I'm a great friend. That'll teach that fill-enduring man, child neglect. Jessie is a bad friend, and I hope she never sleeps peacefully again. User Tunnel35. There are two things about this one that will always haunt me. Was the wife intending to end the baby's life too? The fact she wanted to take the baby from OP's parents' house right before she ended herself really scares me. Did Jessie speak at the funeral of the woman she drove to suicide? All right, folks. It's time to shift gears and dive into our next compelling story. Buckle up for another journey into the unexpected twists of Reddit tales. My dad is furious that my mom slept with other people in an open marriage he wanted. My parents got married when they were super young. My dad knocked up my mom and their parents married them off. My grandfather was able to set up some business for my dad in a big city, and they moved here soon after my birth. My mom grew up in a conservative southern town where she was taught to be a submissive wife. And even after moving to the big city, she didn't spend much time socializing. She had no friends and never went out. My dad was only there to provide for us. He was always away on business, and he wasn't there as a husband for my mom or as a father to me. My dad made a lot of money, so we never lacked anything. Growing up, I became my mom's best friend. We would talk about everything. I pushed her to make friends and to find hobbies. After years of pushing, she started going to a nearby park and made her first friend, a gym trainer. Encouraged by her friend and me, she decided to join the gym. She met a few more people there and started having some semblance of a social life, but she still continued to tell me everything. I think my dad's new secretary gave him the idea, but he asked my mom for an open marriage almost a year ago. He told her he wasn't happy in their marriage and that she wasn't providing him with everything he wanted. My mom, who is a Christian wife, was mortified and told me about the proposal in tears. I suggested she get a divorce, but she said she didn't believe in it, and she wouldn't be the one to end their marriage. As my dad pushed, I knew exactly where this would end up if my mom agreed. Her friend and I convinced her. My mom was hesitant at first, but she agreed with the condition that they would be completely transparent with each other. My dad was a middle-aged 41 man with a belly, and my mom, 39, was an athletic woman who worked out regularly. I'm a 22-year-old woman, BTW. I don't know how my dad was so blind or what he thought would happen. I helped create online dating profiles for my mom almost 6 months ago. After getting an insane number of matches, choosing from them and chatting with them for months, my mom started hooking up with a few people. Getting all this attention has provided a massive boost to her confidence, and she seems better. My dad hooked up with his secretary almost immediately. He's had very little luck with other ladies. With their transparency thing, my mom tells him about all her hookups. A few weeks ago, my dad screamed at my mom for some minor thing. Usually my mom would have apologized, but with her new confidence, she didn't back down. It's been constant fights the last few weeks. My dad keeps starting fights by making snide remarks about my mom's clothing or appearance. He almost even called my mom a whore, but stopped himself. I think open marriage finally sunk in. My mom told me he tried to have a conversation about stopping their open marriage, but she immediately shot it down. I think they'll split up. My dad was never there for either of us, but the thought of my parents splitting up still feels weird. I don't feel bad for my dad, but I wish he put effort into his family. I'm happy for my mom, though. A few days after my previous post, my dad left our home and had a divorce served to mom in a week. My grandparents didn't know about any of this, but my dad told them when he served the divorce. He also implied to them that my mom was cheating on him. Both sets of grandparents came to our home and started berating my mom. I kept screenshots of all my parents' communications, and my mom showed them to them, and it got way worse after that. Grandparents started fighting each other, blaming each other's children for causing all this. A few days after this, my mom's old church friends came to our home. Back when my mom used to go to church, they used to look down on her for being from a small town. My mom has always been a very caring and non-judgmental person, so she disagreed with their bigotry and they began excluding her from their activities. After she met her gym friends, my mom stopped going to church entirely. These church friends started calling my mom a slut, and she kicked them out. My mom is on a cut right now, so she has very defined abs and arms. So along with all the normal stuff getting thrown at her, my grandparents accused her of having a man body, and she also had a lot of random transphobia thrown at her. Her trainer friend has been a great support through all this. She contacted the attorney she used for her divorce, and my mom is spending a lot of time at her house. Turns out, the business my dad is running is owned by mom. It was set up by my mom's dad in her name, so it belongs to her. I did not know this until now and assumed that my dad owned it. The whole situation is a huge mess right now. Dad is living in some hotel, and my grandparents left yesterday after a week of fighting and trying to force my parents back together. I know there's a lot more divorce drama to come, but I hope it calms down for now. Firstly, the air is thick with newfound confidence, unfiltered honesty, and a touch of midlife awakening. Dad, in all his middle-aged glory, thought an open marriage was the answer to his woes. Little did he know it was Pandora's box, and Pandora had a gym membership and an active dating profile. Now, because no family drama is complete without them, we've got the conservative Christian wife breaking free, the middle-aged man seeking validation, and the supportive daughter caught in the crossfire. It's like a Shakespearean comedy, but with more gym trainers and fewer mistaken identities. Life is messy, relationships are complex, and midlife crises rarely lead to smooth sailing. Yet, through it all, there's an opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and a reevaluation of what truly matters. It's a reminder that even when the script seems to be spinning out of control, there's a chance for a plot twist that brings clarity and a touch of resolution. Before we dive into the next story, let's take a moment to check out what you, our incredible audience, are saying in the comments. Your opinions truly matter. User Nero328. Honestly, I might just sit down with some popcorn to watch this implosion. So he basically wanted his wife's permission to bang his secretary. And when that didn't work, he thought his reserve, in other words, the wife, would be so grateful he came back to her that she would, what? Immediately end all the attention and self-confidence she'd obtained? Obviously, your dad never did his research. In open marriages, it's almost always easier for the woman to find a date than a man. User VG Schadenfreude replies, and the whole point of polyamory is trust and open communication for everyone involved. Every person in the pod has to consent to including any new person. He wanted to be able to sleep around with whoever he wanted and never answer to anyone, while still expecting his primary wife to attend to all of his needs, keeping house, tracking bills and appointments, providing him emotional labor, providing him offspring, and doing all of the work involved in raising them, etc. He didn't want her to enjoy any of the benefits of an open marriage because he never saw her as an actual person. She was never more than a combination maid and broodmare in his eyes, an object to be controlled by him. Now that he's no longer in control, he's losing his shit. User Animato. I've only known of one that worked, and it really amazed me. Outwardly, they seemed like a very traditional, wholesome couple, and they were, but they were also sexually hyperactive. At the time, I was in my early 20s, I couldn't really appreciate how healthy their relationship must have been. I was just a horny kid thinking how lucky he was. Now when I think about them, it's all about how good they were together and how exemplary their communication was. We've had some great discussions, and now it's time to move on to our next intriguing story. Get ready for more twists, turns, and unexpected revelations. I, 29F, keep finding long hairs in my bathroom, which is strange because my husband, 32M, is bald, and I have a short pixie crop hairstyle. This started a few weeks ago. While cleaning the bathroom, I found a number of long hair strands over my bathroom wall by the shower. This struck me as very odd, because not only does my husband not have hair, I also wear a very cropped, short hairstyle. So it's impossible for the strands I found to belong to either me or my husband. Confused, I washed them away but couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided not to mention it but kept looking out for them. There seems to be a pattern that there's hairs appearing when I'm either at work or out for a longer time period. I feel like I'm going crazy, and feel like I shouldn't just immediately go to my husband cheating on me with a longer-haired woman. I asked my husband about it and he just shrugged, which makes me more paranoid as surely this is something that's strange, so why is he so blasé about it? I'm starting to think he's playing it down to stop me from finding out the truth. It happened again 2 days ago, and I asked my husband again. He dismissed it, but this time admitted it's strange, but told me the only explanation is that they must be my hairs. They are not, And after saying so, now he'll just ignore me if I bring it up. I don't want to assume my husband is cheating on me and accuse him of such over something so ridiculous, but I'm driving myself into the ground trying to work out how the hairs have got there without my husband dismissing it as nothing. I ultimately decided against getting a secret camera set up because, ironically enough, I didn't want to betray my partner's trust. Though part of me wanted to get one to squash any worries of someone living in my walls, as per some comments said. I did though plan to leave work early, which is something I've never done before. My boss allowed me to leave after a half day. Upon returning home, nothing seemed amiss. I was expecting another car on the drive or parked outside on the street. There was no other car I didn't recognize. Quietly letting myself in, I was immediately confused. In the hallway, there was a pair of shoes I didn't recognize. And not only that, they looked like men's shoes. Standing in the hallway trying to work out what to do, if I should sneak around or make my presence known, before I could decide, my husband walked out of the kitchen with 2 cups of tea. By my husband's face, it was obvious he was surprised to see me. Playing along with naivete, I asked my husband how he could have known I was coming home early to make me tea. Expecting my husband to lie, he surprised me by sitting me down and explaining everything. At the beginning of lockdown, his friend, someone I'm not all that close with because only met once, was evicted, lost his job, and had been couch surfing. So for some days over the past couple of weeks, this guy has been traveling to our house, and with the acceptance of my husband, using our bathroom to freshen up to attend interviews. He was also borrowing shirts and suits from my husband. As it turns out, my husband's friend has long hair and a beard, so it turns out my husband isn't cheating on me, but was hiding the fact his long-haired friend was coming over to use our shower. After his shower, I ended up meeting Dave, and he turned out to be a very nice bloke just down on his luck. I wished him the best for his socially distanced interview, and he went on his way. I asked my husband why he didn't just tell me, as I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Turns out he was worried about my reaction, and me not liking his friend or approving of the situation. He also told me Dave was very embarrassed about the whole situation, and didn't want people to know what he was having to do. I told my husband I was starting to believe he was cheating, and he was shocked, having not even considering those implications while attempting covering for his friend. I told him this whole thing was ridiculous, and even suggested his friend live with us until he's back on his feet. Funnily enough, my worst-case scenario, which was mentioned in the replies, was either a homeless man or woman living in my walls and sneakily using the shower. And though this seems to be half the case, I'm glad it wasn't a stranger as such, that wasn't unwelcome, and someone that wasn't living in my walls. Kudos for resisting the urge to transform your home into a surveillance state with secret cameras. The potential drama of discovering a covert roommate living in your walls would have made for riveting reality TV, but your decision to trust prevailed. The unexpected twist, where your husband's nonchalant attitude transformed into a covert operation involving a friend down on his luck, added a delightful layer of wit to the narrative. It's like your bathroom became the backstage of a makeover show for both appearances and lives. Your husband's fear of your reaction, while humorous in hindsight, speaks to the complexities of relationships and the irrational fears we sometimes harbor. And Dave, the mystery man with the long hair and borrowed suits, emerges as the unlikely hero of the story, showcasing the humanity in unexpected places. In the end, your bathroom chronicles turned out to be a testament to trust, compassion, and the unexpected camaraderie found in the unlikeliest of places. Who knew a pixie crop could be the protagonist in such a captivating, humorous, and ultimately uplifting tale? Before we unravel the last chapter, let's take a pit stop at the community comments. Your thoughts and reactions are the heartbeat of our discussions. User Acceptable Fisherman. As the person who has been down like that before, it is kind of embarrassing if you've lost everything and just want to get back on his feet as discreetly as possible. Dave might have been couch surfing, but if he needed to use their shower and bathroom, he was probably in actuality homeless and just wasn't telling OP's husband. It's respectable to try and get back up on your feet and not feel like you're bothering everyone. There's probably more to Dave's story than OP is stating or even knows about. User strippers and cocaine. It could also be that the husband was worried about her reaction to having another person in the house, especially someone that has been around many other people during COVID times. Of course, I'm making assumptions that they were quarantining, distancing, as she mentioned lockdown, and that she's some sort of essential worker having to go to a workplace. User Miss Columbia. Kind of all the more reason he should have told her. It's really disrespectful to do this to a person you live with. And if the truth is as benign as he says it is, I really don't get why it needed to be a secret. Dave might be embarrassed, but you don't lie to your spouse. It concerns me that her husband would lie to his wife so easily, over a period of time, about something so trivial. The comment section has been buzzing with energy. Now let's channel that excitement into our last story. Get ready for more surprises and twists. My husband told someone he was out with his little sister. He doesn't have one. I've been married to my husband for a long time. We have kids, a house, and pets together. We have an active sex life. We go on dates often and share a lot of the same hobbies. Today he's at a pool party with our oldest son. I took our youngest to the water park in town, where I ran into one of the other moms I know. We started talking, and she mentioned at one point that it had been so nice to meet my husband's younger sister last week, and asked if she was my sister or his. I replied that neither one of us has a sister, and asked her what the woman looked like. She said she was young and petite with dark hair. I only have a much younger brother with red hair, and he has a brother who is over 6', so neither one of us have a sibling who could be confused for a sister. He doesn't have any cousins, and I do, but he's not close with any of them. I'm freaking out, because obviously the first thing my mind goes to is he's cheating. I remember him going to the park last week, and he never made any mention of meeting up with anyone or hanging out with anyone there. My youngest son isn't old enough to tell me. I can't get through to him because his phone isn't on him since they're in the pool, so now I'm just here freaking out because my mind is going wild. When he got home from with our son, I simply said, "Trish said she ran into you at the park. She said you were with someone you introduced as your sister. Who was it?" I knew something was up because he was just silent and he didn't say anything. Then he just said, "Okay, we need to talk. Do you want to do this now or later?" Obviously, I said now, so he told the boys to go play downstairs. He admitted he had been planning on leaving me for a while, but he had wanted to wait for the right time to do it. He said he had met someone else he had feelings for. He had met her last year, and things happened slowly. He said he never cheated on me physically, but there were a lot of times he told me he was doing work when he was really texting her, or going into his office to FaceTime her, and they would sometimes meet up. I asked him why he felt okay bringing our son around this person, and he said it was because our son already knew her, which is when I found out that his little sister and person he's leaving me for is our son's daycare teacher. My husband is the one who drops off every morning, so I guess that's how they met. I should have guessed something was up when he began volunteering to go pick him up as well. He seemed apologetic and kept repeating that he never did anything physical, and that he wanted to remain civil for the kids. I still haven't fully processed any of this. He's living in the basement apartment until we get things figured out. Well, slap my face and call me surprised. The tension hit harder than a plot twist in a thriller. And suddenly, you're starring in a drama you never auditioned for. This ain't your typical cheating spouse storyline. No secret lover in a trench coat, no late-night rendezvous. Nope, your husband went for the daycare teacher. Guess he took show and tell a bit too literally. No femme fatale, no evil stepmother. Just a husband tangled in a web of lies with a twist ending that even M. Night Shyamalan would tip his hat to. A fake sister introduced in the grand tradition of sitcom misunderstandings. A husband who's become a master of deception. And a basement apartment that's the unexpected setting for this messed up sitcom. Embrace the chaos, for it's in the chaos that we often find our strength. Life's full of unexpected twists and turns, and sometimes it's the unplanned detours that lead to the most beautiful destinations. Our community is a treasure trove of insights, so let's take a moment to dive into the comments before we immerse ourselves in the end of the stories. User Pawns. Alias. I had a reverse Trish once, never knew her name, but I will always thank her. I had been seeing a woman for several months and things were going really well. We were out one day when we ran into reverse Trish while we were in a cafe. RT turns to the woman I thought of as my partner and asks her how her husband was doing and when were they coming round for dinner again. I was completely floored. I had no idea my partner was already married. Thanks, reverse Trish, I can never repay what you did for me that day. User Surregular. A colleague of my husband's got married. It was the second marriage for him and his girlfriend. I got to know them both, and Claudia was just a lovely person. She had 3 kids and one had cystic fibrosis. The colleague, Randy, got so much credit for taking on a woman with 3 kids, one of whom was ill. One evening, Randy showed up to our house with his new co-worker, a very young woman named Debbie who had flown across the US for this job. I swear it was a low-level administrative job, not worth crossing the street for. The way she looked at him and he at her told me the real story. A few days later, Claudia was on the phone with me and I mentioned that I had met Randy's new coworker, and this was news to Claudia. She divorced Randy. He and Debbie hooked up, but she left him. He crawled into a bottle. My husband, now ex, was furious with me for saying anything. This let me see exactly who my husband was. User Slapyxo. Hooray for reverse Trishes. I have a similar story to yours. I had a boyfriend, and in hindsight it was obvious as hell he was in a more serious relationship with someone else. The typical only saw me certain hours, never stayed overnight. He only ever came to my house, didn't have me on any social media, constantly canceled plans with no notice, and the most obvious, had a female roommate. I wasn't completely stupid and had my suspicions, but he used to explain it was all because of his job because he's a cop, and the friend is someone he's known for years and they live together out of convenience. One day he actually took me over to his place, but only because he needed to change, and made me wait outside. One of his neighbors saw me, and when my boyfriend came out, the neighbor introduced herself to him, as apparently they had never actually talked, and asked, "So, what's your girlfriend's name anyway?" And without hesitation, my boyfriend said a name different to mine. clearly the name of his roommate. And he didn't bother correcting the neighbor or introducing me at all. Neighbor knew exactly what they were doing and did me a solid. As we wrap up this Reddit story, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more captivating Reddit stories. Your support means the world to me. I enjoy, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.